The zebra finch has been studied intensively in neuroscience labs precisely because its song learning process mirrors human language acquisition so closely at the neural level that findings from zebra finch research have directly advanced understanding of human speech disorders. The marsh warbler, a small, inconspicuous bird, incorporates acoustic fragments from over 200 other species into its own song during its lifetime. It does not mimic randomly. It selects, recombines, and creates something that changes over time. If a human composer did exactly this, systematically gathering musical phrases from 200 other composers and integrating them into an evolving personal style, we would call it a remarkable creative achievement. And then there is the lyrebird of Australia. Superb lyrebirds can reproduce environmental sounds with accuracy so precise it has to be heard to be believed. Chainsaws, camera shutters, car alarms, construction machinery, other bird species, human speech. Male lyrebirds incorporate these sounds into elaborate courtship displays, weaving industrial noise and natural birdsong into unified, rhythmically organized performances. The question this raises is one that ornithologists have debated seriously: at what point does complex, learned, creatively recombined, rhythmically organized vocalization produced for an audience stop being called music? Now move into the ocean. Humpback whales produce songs of a complexity that, when first properly analyzed by biologist Roger Payne in the late 1960s, caused genuine astonishment in the scientific community. A single humpback song can last up to 20 minutes. It is repeated, with high fidelity, for hours on end. It contains hierarchical structure. Individual sounds combine into phrases, phrases combine into themes, themes combine into song sessions that can extend across an entire day. This is the same multi-level organizational structure that musicologists use to analyze Western classical composition. But the aspect of humpback song that fundamentally changed how scientists think about animal music is not its complexity. It is its cultural evolution. Humpback whale songs change over time. New phrases appear. Old phrases disappear. And these changes spread, not genetically, not by physical contact, but by transmission through sound across ocean populations. Roger Payne and his colleagues documented that male humpbacks in the same ocean basin all sing the same song at any given time, and that song gradually evolves over months and years, with innovation spreading from individual to individual. In one documented case, a new song type that originated in the population off the eastern coast of Australia spread westward across the Pacific over the course of several years, eventually replacing previous song types across populations separated by thousands of miles of open ocean. The songs were traveling, moving from whale to whale through water, spreading like cultural information. Because that is exactly what they were. Humpback whales have been doing this, learning, transmitting, and evolving complex structured vocalizations within a cultural framework, for far longer than human civilization has existed. The oldest confirmed musical instruments made by humans date to approximately 40 to 50,000 years ago. The evolutionary lineage of humpback whales traces back over 15 million years. We do not know when humpbacks began producing complex song. But we know it was not something humans taught them. Consider also what rhythm alone reveals. In 2009, Anirudh Patel and colleagues at the Neurosciences Institute in California published research on a sulfur-crested cockatoo named Snowball who demonstrated spontaneous synchronization of body movement to a musical beat. When the tempo of the music was changed experimentally, Snowball adjusted. He was not coincidentally moving in time with the music. He was actively tracking the beat and updating his movements accordingly. This was significant because beat synchronization, the ability to entrain physical movement to an external rhythmic pulse, had been considered a capacity largely specific to humans. Patel proposed the vocal learning hypothesis to explain it. The neural circuitry required for complex vocal imitation may be the same circuitry that enables rhythmic entrainment. Species that are sophisticated vocal learners, parrots, songbirds, humans, and to a lesser extent dolphins and elephants, show evidence of beat synchronization. Species that are not complex vocal learners generally do not. Rhythm may have entered the nervous system not through music but through language. The ability to copy sounds, to track acoustic patterns across time, to predict and match sequences, these capacities, once present, created the capacity for musical rhythm as a byproduct. Dancing, in this framework, is an accidental consequence of talking. So when did music begin? The honest answer is that no one knows precisely. But the evidence converges on a conclusion that should shift how you think about what music actually is. The structural ingredients of music, pattern recognition, rhythmic entrainment, vocal learning, cultural transmission of structured sound, hierarchical organization of acoustic signals, were not assembled by humans. They were assembled by evolution over hundreds of millions of years, distributed across species, embedded in nervous systems that predate our own by geological timescales. Humans did not invent these capacities. We inherited them. And at some point in our history, a threshold was crossed. The computations that had always been running in nervous systems became something that could be consciously experienced, reflected upon, elaborated, and shared. The pattern recognition that had served survival for millions of years became something that could produce the Goldberg variations, or a blues guitar in a Mississippi evening, or the song you have replayed 50 times in a row without being able to explain why. But the roots of all of it were not planted by human hands. They were planted in the genomes and neural circuits of creatures that sang in ancient oceans, called across prehistoric forests, and beat rhythmic patterns into the air of a world that had no one yet to call any of it music. You are lying in that same field now. The wind moves through the grass. Your heartbeat is steady. And somewhere out there, in water and in trees and in the open sky, other species are still playing the version that came first. The music that was here before you arrived. The music that, in some quiet and fundamental way, made you possible. You are lying in a field somewhere, 10,000 years ago. No instruments, no concerts, no playlists. Just wind moving through tall grass, rain striking stone, your own heartbeat steady in your chest. And yet, something around you was already making music. Not metaphorically. Not poetically. Literally. Before the first human hand ever carved a flute from bone, before the first drum was struck, before anyone put a name to the feeling a melody creates inside your chest, the world was already full of it. The question that has quietly unsettled scientists for decades is not whether music exists in nature. It does. The real question is far stranger. Did humans invent music? Or did we simply stumble upon something that was already there, running through the nervous systems of creatures that existed millions of years before us? What you are about to discover rewrites the story of music entirely. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Because music, as it turns out, may be one of the oldest forces on this planet. Far older than language. Far older than civilization. Far older than the human brain itself. This is not a romantic idea dressed up as science. This is where the evidence actually points. And the evidence is stranger and more beautiful than anything you were taught in school. Before we go further, we need to dismantle something you were probably taught to believe. The idea that music is a human invention. That one day, some ancient ancestor picked up a hollow reed, blew air through it, and created something entirely new under the sun. That is a comfortable story. It is also almost certainly wrong. Music is not simply a collection of pleasant sounds arranged in an order that feels nice. Music has architecture. It has structure, pattern, rhythm, timing, and something neuroscientists call expectation. Your brain is constantly predicting the next note when you listen to a song. Not consciously. Not deliberately. Your brain does this automatically, beneath awareness, running probability calculations in real time based on everything it has ever heard before. And when music violates your expectation in exactly the right way, resolves a tension you did not know had been building, your brain releases dopamine. That is why a chord progression can make you feel deeply sad without a single word being spoken. That is why a sudden beat drop can cause a physical sensation in your chest before your conscious mind registers anything. That is why rhythm can make your body move before you have consciously decided to move it. Music plugs directly into ancient neural systems that were present in mammalian brains long before language evolved, long before the prefrontal cortex expanded, long before anything recognizable as human intelligence appeared on this planet. But here is the detail that should genuinely disturb your assumptions. Those same neural systems, pattern recognition, expectation formation, rhythmic entrainment, reward response to structured sound, are not uniquely human. They exist in birds. They exist in whales. They exist in primates, in elephants, in fish, in species whose evolutionary lineages diverged from ours hundreds of millions of years ago. Which means one of two things must be true. Either evolution independently reinvented the same complex music processing neural hardware in dozens of unrelated lineages, across hundreds of millions of years, for completely separate reasons. Or that hardware was already there. Already embedded in the fundamental structure of nervous systems. Already part of the operating system of animal life before any specific species put it to musical use. Scientists who study this question increasingly favor the second explanation. And the implications of that are enormous. Go back further than you are comfortable going. 500 million years. Before dinosaurs walked the earth, before mammals existed, before anything resembling a modern vertebrate had made its way onto land. The ocean was already producing structured acoustic signals. Marine invertebrates were communicating through vibration. Ancient fish were producing rhythmic clicks, pulses, and tonal calls to attract mates, defend territories, and coordinate group movement. The very first animals to evolve ears did not develop them to enjoy silence. They evolved hearing because the acoustic environment was already saturated with information. The ocean was not quiet and then later became noisy. It was acoustically dense from the beginning. And the animals that could parse that density, that could detect patterns within it, predict sequences within it, distinguish meaningful signals from background noise, those animals had a significant survival advantage. Sound pattern recognition became one of evolution's most powerful and ancient tools. And here is what that means. The cognitive architecture underlying musical perception, the ability to detect structured sound, track rhythmic patterns across time, predict continuity, and generate responses to acoustic information, may not have been built for music at all. It may have been built for survival in a loud and complex acoustic world. And then, millions of years later, in species complex enough to do something more with it, that same architecture was repurposed. Turned inward. Turned into something that could be experienced, not just processed. Turned into music. Now consider birds, because birds are where the evidence becomes almost impossible to dismiss. Birds are separated from humans by more than 300 million years of evolutionary history. You share no recent common ancestor with a sparrow or a nightingale. The lineages that produced birds and the lineages that produced mammals diverged long before either group developed complex vocalizations. And yet, a young songbird learns to sing in a way that mirrors, with striking precision, the way a human child learns language. It listens to adult singers during a specific developmental window. It attempts to reproduce what it heard. It makes systematic errors. It corrects those errors iteratively, week by week, through a process of vocal practice that requires both auditory feedback and motor adjustment. It eventually produces a recognizable song that contains regional variation, what researchers call dialects, based on which adults it listened to during that developmental period. In 2014, researchers including David Rothenberg and Tina Rosk published detailed analysis of birdsong structure across multiple species. They found that birdsongs frequently contain repetition, variation, rhythmic phrasing, melodic contour, and call and response patterns. These are not random vocalizations. They are organized according to principles that human music theorists would find structurally familiar. The white-throated sparrow produces a song with a distinctive rhythmic phrase that varies predictably across its range.